So you want to own a self-storage business. Buy some land, build rows of small metal units, put up a security gate, install cameras, then wait for people to fill the spaces with things they don't want inside their homes. At least, that's what self-storage looks like from the outside. A bunch of small boxes, a keypad, a fence, and customers paying every month. It sounds almost too simple, but that's exactly why this business is so interesting. Because a self-storage facility isn't really selling storage. It's selling something much more valuable. Space, security, and convenience. Think about the person standing in a garage that has become so full they can barely move. Old furniture, boxes of clothes, holiday decorations, tools, business inventory, family belongings. Maybe they're moving, maybe they're downsizing, maybe they're renovating, or maybe they simply have more possessions than their house can handle. They don't necessarily want to sell those things. They don't want to throw them away. They just need somewhere else to put them, and that's where the storage business begins. The customer isn't buying a metal room, they're buying back space inside their own life. That distinction changes the economics completely, because unlike a normal retail business, you don't have to manufacture something new every time a customer pays. The building already exists, the customer simply continues renting access to it, and that creates something business owners love: recurring revenue. A customer moves in, they pay. The next month they pay again, and the month after that. Nothing new has to be manufactured. No inventory needs to be shipped, no product needs to be restocked. The same square footage can generate revenue over and over again. That is the first secret of self-storage. The product isn't the box. The product is the monthly right to use the box. Now imagine looking at an empty piece of land. To most people, it looks like nothing. No tenants, no buildings, no income, just dirt. But a storage developer sees something completely different. They see rentable square footage. They see dozens of rows. Hundreds of units, sometimes thousands, and every unit represents another potential monthly payment. The value of the property therefore depends on much more than the land itself. Location matters, population matters, household growth matters, competition matters. And perhaps most importantly, how many people nearby actually need storage? A facility next to a rapidly growing neighborhood can become extremely valuable, especially when new homes are getting smaller, families are moving, businesses are expanding. An available storage space is limited, but the opposite can happen too. Build too much storage in the wrong location, and the empty units become dead space. The buildings are still there, the taxes still arrive, security still costs money, insurance still costs money, maintenance still costs money, but nobody is paying to use the empty units. That's why occupancy becomes one of the most important numbers in the entire business. Imagine a facility with 500 units. If every unit is occupied, you've created a powerful recurring revenue engine. But if 150 units are empty, that is a huge amount of potential revenue sitting unused. And unlike a traditional apartment, an empty storage unit usually doesn't need a new kitchen, doesn't need a bathroom renovation, doesn't need furniture. It doesn't need a fresh coat of paint every time a customer leaves. The next customer can often move into the same unit with very little preparation. That is one reason storage economics can be so attractive, but getting those first units built requires serious money. The developer needs land, architects, engineers' permits, construction, security systems, gates and lighting, drainage, roads, and sometimes climate-controlled buildings, because not every customer wants to store furniture inside a basic metal box. Some belongings need protection from extreme heat and humidity. That means a higher quality storage facility can become a much more expensive project. Then comes another important decision: unit size. A storage facility doesn't have one product, it has many. Small lockers, medium rooms are large units. Vehicle storage, business storage, climate-controlled spaces. Different customers need different amounts of space. A customer storing holiday decorations may need a small unit. A family moving between homes may need something much larger. A contractor may need a unit for tools and equipment. A small business may need an entire row of units for inventory. The operator is therefore building a portfolio of different products inside one property, and that gives the owner another advantage: pricing. A 10 by 10 unit doesn't have to cost the same everywhere. The price changes according to demand. Location, unit size, climate control. Access, competition, and availability. When most units are occupied, the operator may be able to increase rents. When empty units begin piling up, prices may need to become more aggressive. The facility is constantly balancing price against occupancy, and that is where the business starts to look less like real estate and more like revenue management. A smart operator doesn't simply ask, "How much should this unit cost?" They ask, "How much will customers actually pay while keeping occupancy high?" That question can change every month, and unlike a traditional rental property, storage customers often have another interesting behavior. They don't necessarily move out quickly. Someone may rent a unit during a move, then discover they still need it 6 months later, then a year later, then even longer. The boxes remain, the payment continues, and the business relationship quietly becomes recurring revenue. That is why retention matters. A customer who stays for years can be worth far more than a customer who rents for a few weeks. But customers don't stay simply because the building exists. The facility has to be convenient, easy to access, clean, secure, and reliable. Nobody wants to drive across town every time they need something from storage. That makes location incredibly important. A facility close to residential neighborhoods can have a major advantage, especially when customers can reach it in minutes instead of crossing an entire city, and security matters just as much. People are storing things they care about. Furniture, electronics, documents, business inventory, family possessions. So cameras, gated access. Lighting, electronic entry systems, and monitoring become part of the product. The customer isn't only renting square footage, they're paying for the feeling that their belongings are safe. Then something even more interesting happens. Once the facility is operating, the owner can begin making money from more than rent. Late fees, administrative charges, locks, moving supplies, insurance products, vehicle storage, business services, and premium access options can create additional revenue around the basic storage unit. None of these services may look huge individually, but multiplied across hundreds or thousands of customers. Small fees can become another meaningful income stream. And then there is one of the biggest advantages of the model. Labor. A traditional apartment building may require maintenance workers, property managers, leasing staff, cleaning teams, plumbers, electricians, and constant tenant support. A storage facility can operate with a surprisingly small team. Much of the process can be automated. Customers can rent online, pay electronically, receive access codes, enter through an automated gate, and manage their account without ever meeting an employee. That means technology isn't simply making the business more convenient, it's reducing the cost of serving each customer. And that is where the self-storage model starts becoming very powerful. Because now imagine the equation. Hundreds of units, recurring monthly payments, low inventory costs, limited staffing, automated access, and a physical property that may appreciate over time. That isn't just a place to store boxes, it's a machine designed to turn empty space into recurring cash flow. But the real financial trick hasn't even started yet, because owning the facility gives the investor access to something much more powerful than monthly rent. It gives them control over an income-producing asset, and once you understand how the value of that asset is calculated, the business begins to look completely different. A self-storage facility is valuable for two different reasons. First, it produces income. Second, that income can influence what the property itself is worth. This is where self-storage starts behaving like a financial machine. Imagine a facility generating strong annual operating income. If an investor can increase occupancy, raise rents carefully, add more units, reduce unnecessary expenses, or introduce higher value services, the property can generate more income, and higher income can make the entire asset more valuable. That creates a powerful loop. Improve the facility, increase occupancy, increase revenue, increase operating income, increase property value. Now the owner isn't simply collecting rent, they're potentially creating equity. And equity can become another source of capital. The investor may eventually refinance the property, use part of the increased value to support another investment, then build or acquire another facility. One storage property becomes two become five become a regional network, and suddenly the business is no longer about one piece of land. It's about controlling an entire storage market. But there's another side to this story. You still have to build the facility, and construction costs can become enormous. Land may be expensive. Steel prices can change. Labor costs can rise. Permits can take longer than expected. Utility connections can add unexpected expenses. Climate-controlled buildings require more equipment. And every month of construction delay can mean another month without revenue. A developer may spend years planning a facility, only to discover that the local market has changed before the doors even open. That's why demand research matters before construction begins. How many existing facilities are nearby? How full are they? What do they charge? How fast is the population growing? Are new homes being built? Are businesses moving into the area? Is the market undersupplied? Or is everyone building storage at the same time? Because self-storage has a dangerous characteristic. It looks easy to build, and when investors realize how simple the buildings are, more investors want to build them. That can create competition extremely quickly. A market that once had too little storage can suddenly become flooded with new facilities. Then occupancy becomes harder. Discounts appear. Marketing costs increase. And the owner who assumed rents would keep rising suddenly has to compete for every customer. This is why the smartest operators don't simply build the biggest facility. They build where demand can support the supply, and they keep watching the market long after construction is finished. Because the market changes. Homes get larger or smaller, businesses expand or close, people move, housing markets weaken, economic conditions change, and every one of those forces can affect storage demand. Then comes one of the strangest customer behaviors in the industry. People are often reluctant to empty their storage units. They may know they haven't opened the door in months. They may even forget what's inside. But as long as the monthly payment feels manageable, they keep paying. Why? Because canceling means making a decision, throwing things away, selling them, giving them to someone, or admitting that they no longer need them. Paying another month feels easier. That creates an unusual retention advantage. The customer can keep paying long after the original reason for renting has disappeared, and from the operator's perspective, the same unit continues producing revenue. But there is still a point where the customer stops paying. Then the facility can follow its legal process for delinquent accounts, and in certain jurisdictions, after required notices and waiting periods, the operator may eventually have the right to dispose of or sell the contents according to local law. That can create another source of recovery, but it also introduces legal responsibilities. Storage is therefore not completely passive. Managers still need systems, access control, billing, customer service, security, maintenance, insurance, compliance, and delinquency management. Technology can automate much of that. Smart gates, digital locks, online reservations, automated billing, security cameras, remote monitoring, and software that tracks occupancy and pricing. The best operators can run a large facility while keeping the physical staff relatively small, and that changes the economics again. Revenue can grow faster than payroll. That's important. Because in many businesses, more customers require more employees. In self-storage, more units don't necessarily require a proportional increase in labor. A facility with 100 units and a facility with 500 units don't necessarily need 5 times as many employees. The machines, the gate, the software, the cameras, and the property do much of the work. That operating leverage is one of the reasons investors find the business attractive. But storage has another revenue opportunity that many people overlook: businesses. A local contractor may need space for equipment. An online seller may need inventory storage. A construction company may need somewhere to keep materials. A small company may outgrow its office, but still need inexpensive storage. These customers can occupy larger units, stay longer, and sometimes rent multiple spaces. That makes commercial storage another important part of the customer mix. Then there is vehicle storage: boats, RVs, trailers, classic cars, work vehicles. Customers may pay substantially more for large outdoor or covered spaces. Now the same land can generate revenue from something far larger than a 10 by 10 unit, and some operators combine all of these models: traditional storage, climate-controlled storage, business storage, vehicle storage, moving supplies, insurance-related products, online leasing, automated access, one property, multiple revenue streams. That is the real business. But there's one risk that can destroy everything: debt. A facility may look profitable on paper, but if the owner borrowed heavily to build it, rising interest rates can squeeze cash flow. If occupancy falls at the same time, the pressure becomes even greater. Revenue falls, debt payments remain, taxes remain, insurance remains, maintenance remains, and suddenly the beautiful recurring revenue machine becomes a financial problem. That is why experienced operators focus on more than rent. They watch occupancy, average rent per unit, revenue per available unit, customer retention, operating expenses, debt service, and the amount of cash remaining after everything is paid. The strongest business isn't the one with the highest advertised rent. It's the one with the healthiest economics after all costs. And that brings us to the biggest lesson. Self-storage looks like a simple real estate business, but underneath it is something much more sophisticated. It combines real estate, recurring revenue, dynamic pricing, automation, customer retention, asset appreciation, and financial leverage. The customer thinks they're renting a box. The operator sees rentable square footage. The investor sees recurring cash flow. The lender sees an income-producing asset. And the developer sees a piece of land that can be transformed into hundreds of monthly revenue streams. That's why the real business isn't storage. It's turning unused space into predictable income. One unit pays, then another, hundreds of small payments eventually become a large revenue stream. And if the property is managed correctly, that income can increase the value of the entire asset. That higher value can create equity. That equity can support the next facility and the next, until a single piece of empty land becomes a regional network of storage properties. The boxes are only what customers see. The real product is the space. The real advantage is recurring revenue. And the real wealth comes from controlling an asset that customers keep paying to use. Because the smartest self-storage operators aren't simply renting rooms. They're monetizing human clutter, they're turning unused possessions into recurring payments, and they're proving something powerful about business. You don't always need to sell people something they want. Sometimes the most profitable business is giving them somewhere to put everything they already own. Once you understand that, you'll never look at a row of storage units the same way again.